You're chasing a ghost. Senior Chief Petty Officer Anya Sharma is dead. We buried her. The condescending voice of Analyst Thorne echoed through the sterile confines of the JSOC Signals Intelligence Center, each word a hammer blow of certainty against the fragile hope shimmering on the main screen. The junior analysts, a sea of young faces bathed in the green glow of monitors, exchanged nervous glances and then stared back at their consoles, their silence a form of complicity. But on the central display, the signal persisted, a tiny, impossibly stubborn pulse originating from the Zargos Mountains, the very place Sharma's unit had been ambushed and annihilated a month prior. It was a ghost, a phantom, a technical impossibility broadcasting on a frequency that was supposed to have died with her. Yet it was there. It was clean. It was stable. The signal didn't scream for help. It didn't wail in desperation. It simply existed, a quiet, methodical heartbeat in the deafening static of enemy territory. It was a testament broadcast into the void, a whisper of defiance against the declared fact of her death. Across the room, Admiral Vance, drawn from his office by the escalating anomaly, watched not the screen, but the reactions of his team. He saw Thorne's loud arrogance, the junior analyst's cowed obedience, and the signal's serene, disciplined pulse. He recognized the pattern, not in the code, but in the conflict between loud assumption and quiet evidence. If you believe that true competence whispers while arrogance shouts, type silence below. Thorne, basking in the perceived validation of the room's quiet deference, continued his lecture, his voice dripping with the smug superiority of a man who mistakes knowledge for wisdom. "Look at the telemetry," he commanded, pointing a dismissive finger at a waterfall of cascading data. "The carrier wave has zero spectral flutter. That's not a jury-rigged field transmitter. That's a state-of-the-art military-grade beacon. It's textbook enemy deception, a honeypot designed to lure a rescue team into a kill box. They probably recover her dog tags and are using them to bait us. It's Signal Warfare 101, people," he smirked, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed. "We held a memorial service. The Secretary of the Navy sent a letter to her parents. We presented a folded flag. Are you telling me all of that was for show?" He directed his final, rhetorical jab at a young petty officer who had first flagged the signal. The young man shrank under the verbal assault, his face flushing crimson. "No, sir," he mumbled, his eyes falling to his keyboard. Thorne's logic was sound, his reasoning based entirely on established doctrine and technical specifications. His assumptions were ironclad, built on the concrete foundation of official reports and funeral honors. But the signal didn't care about reports. It didn't acknowledge funerals. It continued its steady, rhythmic transmission, a silent, mathematical refutation of Thorne's entire, vocally expressed reality. Its existence was an act of profound insubordination against the established narrative of her death. Then the signal changed. The steady, metronomic pulse, which had been a simple beacon, suddenly blossomed into a dense data packet. A collective, sharp intake of breath swept through the room. This was no longer a simple ping. It was a message. Thorne lunged forward, his arrogance momentarily replaced by a predator's excitement. "There it is, the payload. Run it through every decryption algorithm we have. I want to see what kind of propaganda they're trying to feed us." Keyboards clacked furiously as analysts launched a digital onslaught. The most powerful decryption suites in the world, machines capable of cracking financial networks and government databases in seconds, were thrown against the packet. For a moment, the screen filled with processing scripts. Then, one by one, they failed. Red banners flashed across the monitors. Access denied. Algorithm mismatch. Quantum-resistant cipher detected. The attack was not just repelled, it was ignored. The data packet sat in the system, utterly inert and impenetrable, like a diamond refusing to be scratched by steel. The noisy, brute force assault of their most advanced technology had met a wall of absolute, silent competence. Thorne stared, his mouth slightly agape, the confident smirk melting from his face. The machine's failure was a direct reflection of his own. The silence in the room returned, but this time it was different. It wasn't the silence of intimidation. It was the silence of awe. The packet itself was a work of art, a ghost in their machine. It was built on a theoretical framework Sharma herself had pioneered, a cascading, one-time pad system where each layer of decryption revealed not the message, but the key to the next, more complex layer. It was a digital Fabergé egg, and they were trying to open it with a sledgehammer. Thorn, his frustration mounting with every failed attempt, grew louder and more frantic, his commands becoming desperate shouts. Reroute it through the NSA's servers. Try a brute force quantum attack. There has to be a way in. But his shouting was useless. The signal was designed not to be broken, but to be understood. Its complexity was its message. It was a demonstration of a skill so profound, so far beyond the standard curriculum, that it could only have been authored by one person. The junior analyst had stopped trying to crack it. They were now simply studying its architecture, their expressions a mixture of confusion and reverence. They were witnessing a master's thesis being written in real time, broadcast from behind enemy lines from beyond the grave. The signal was more than a message. It was proof of life, communicated not by its content, but by its very existence. The deafening silence that followed Thorn's final, failed command was the true response. It was the sound of a paradigm shifting, the sound of arrogant certainty being crushed by an undeniable, elegant, and quiet truth. Admiral Vance had seen enough. He moved from the back of the room, his stride measured and calm, a stark contrast to Thorn's agitated pacing. The analysts parted before him, the tension in the room ratcheting up with every step he took. He didn't look at Thorn. He didn't look at the flashing red failure notices. His eyes were fixed on the raw waveform of the signal's carrier wave, the pure, unanalyzed broadcast itself. He approached the main console, and the young petty officer who had first found the signal instinctively vacated the chair. Vance sat, his movements economical and precise. He ignored the encrypted data packet entirely. Instead, he isolated a 10-second loop of the baseline carrier signal and magnified it 1,000 times, displaying its microscopic oscillations on the main screen. To the untrained eye, it was just noise, a jagged, chaotic line. But to a man who had personally reviewed every one of Senior Chief Sharma's after-action reports for a decade, it was as distinct as a fingerprint. "There," Vance said, his voice low but carrying the weight of absolute authority. He pointed to a tiny, repeating imperfection in the wave, a subharmonic anomaly that occurred every 32 seconds. "That's her fist, her digital signature. She built it into every transmitter she ever field modified. It was her way of signing her work." The room was utterly still, the only sound the soft hum of the servers. Admiral Vance stood up and turned to face the stunned analysts. "Mr. Thorn," he said, his voice flat and cold, "your assumption was based on the enemy's capability. You failed to consider the capability of our own." He turned to his aide. "Bring up Senior Chief Petty Officer Anya Sharma's full, unredacted service record." Put it on the main screen, a few keystrokes, and the screen that had just displayed their technological failure now displayed a testament to human excellence. The list scrolled, a silent, devastating rebuttal to Thorn's loud ignorance. Unit, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, Special Projects Division. Skill identifiers, asymmetric signal warfare, advanced cryptanalysis, field expedient electronics. Combat deployments, classified. Awards and commendations. Navy Cross for actions on Objective Vulture. Silver Star for heroism during Operation Nightfall. Bronze Star with valor. Purple Heart. Each entry was a chapter in a life lived at the sharpest edge of conflict, a life dedicated to the quiet, unseen work that allowed others to succeed. Thorn stared at the screen, his face ashen. The woman he had dismissed as a ghost, a dead memory being used as bait, was a living legend whose accomplishments dwarfed his entire career. Vance faced the screen, his back to the room, and rendered a slow, formal salute to the name and the grainy photograph of the quiet, unassuming woman. "Give me a SEAL team," he commanded, his voice ringing with renewed purpose. "Senior Chief Sharma is alive, and she's telling us where she is." The news of the ghost signal spread through the intelligence community not like wildfire, but like a subsonic pulse, a deep, resonant tremor felt by everyone from the NSA headquarters at Fort Meade to listening posts in the farthest corners of the world. It became an instant legend, a story told in hushed tones in secure facilities and encrypted chat rooms. It was a cautionary tale about the mortal sin of assumption. Analyst Thorne became a ghost of a different kind. He wasn't fired or formally disciplined. His punishment was far more poetic. He was reassigned to the digital archives. His days now spent meticulously cataloging and verifying the very service records he had once so arrogantly ignored. His new job was a quiet, monastic penance, a daily lesson in the value of respecting the data, of honoring the lives represented by the files. He was seen but never heard. His verbose confidence was replaced by a stoic, focused humility. He learned to listen to the silence. The signal itself became an artifact. Its unique frequency and modulation signature were classified and named Channel Anya. It became the centerpiece of a new training module at the Naval War College. A lesson not just in signal intelligence, a lesson in recognizing the signature of quiet, indomitable professionalism, even when it broadcasted from the depths of despair. The rescue mission was a masterpiece of precision and speed, guided by the coordinates hidden within the signal's layered encryption. Coordinates that were revealed not by force, but by applying a key derived from the date of Sharma's graduation from training, a personal touch, a breadcrumb for those who truly knew her. 2 nights later, a SEAL team fast-roped into a ravine deep in the Zagros Range. They found her not in a fortified bunker, but in a small, cold cave. She was gaunt, dehydrated, but alive. And she was not alone. With her were 2 wounded members of the local resistance she had been training. She had stayed behind to protect them, her survival a secondary objective to her duty. The source of the signal was a device of breathtaking ingenuity. The guidance system from a downed enemy drone, powered by a truck battery, its antenna a length of scavenged copper wire stretched between 2 rocks. She had built a world-class transmitter from scrap, in the dark, while injured. Her first words to the SEALs were not of relief, but of information. The drone's chipset has their entire comms network encryption. We need to get it out. Even in survival, her focus was on the mission. Back in the archives, Thorne received the after-action report. He read every word, his face impassive. He then filed it under as for Sharma, his hands steady and his work meticulous, a silent, final acknowledgement of the competence he had so foolishly challenged. Months later, in a sterile debriefing room at a secure facility, Anya Sharma sat at a long table, flanked by generals and admirals. She was in a simple, undecorated uniform, her presence as quiet and unassuming as her signal had been. She spoke only when spoken to, her answers concise, technical, and devoid of emotion. She didn't speak of her hardship or her fear. She spoke of the enemy's network vulnerabilities, of the flawed architecture in their command and control systems that she had discovered while captive. Her ordeal had not been a period of mere survival. It had been an 18-day, unsolicited penetration test of the enemy's most secure networks. The information she brought back didn't just lead to her own rescue. It led to the complete dismantling of an entire insurgent network, saving countless lives. Her quiet competence had turned a catastrophic failure into a staggering intelligence victory. The lessons learned from her improvised transmitter and the enemy data she recovered fundamentally changed the doctrine of signal warfare. A new principle was established. Always search for the signature of the professional, the human element hidden within the noise of technology. Her legacy was not a story of survival. It was a new chapter in the textbook, a higher standard for everyone who followed. True greatness is rarely loud. It does not announce its arrival with trumpets or demand attention with self-aggrandizing speeches. It exists in the quiet spaces, in the steady hand of a surgeon, the meticulous code of a programmer, the unwavering calm of a soldier under fire. Anya Sharma never sought recognition. Her name was not known to the public, and her greatest victories were buried in classified reports. Yet, her impact was more profound than any public figure. Her legacy wasn't a statue in a park. It was a technique taught to a new generation of analysts, a standard of excellence that lived on in the quiet, focused work of others. Her signal from the mountains was a perfect metaphor for her life, a quiet, persistent, and brilliant pulse that cut through the noise of chaos and arrogance, proving that a single, competent voice, no matter how faint, can be more powerful than a chorus of ignorant shouts. It proved that respect is not something you claim. It is something you earn, often in silence, and that true strength is measured not by the volume of your voice, but by the undeniable quality of your work. For more stories where quiet competence triumphs over loud assumption and where a professional's signature defines their worth, subscribe to Unknown Heroine Tales.